Lemi, good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Hope you had a seemingly great weekend.
Well, Nigeria, we survived it.
All right, let's start with the dailies this morning and see what we see as the headline. And yes, Nigerian pilot, Nigeria loses $10 billion yearly. This is because some youths do not have certification as skilled artisans in the country. And then you also have Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, a revolutionary instrument sent to transform the country's economy.
Reps committee fingers health agencies over grievous financial breaches. That's from the People's Daily. The committee is saying it could have a sack or jail sentence. Of course, a bit of politics there. Wike saying the PDP National Working Committee not in business of suspending members. That's Damagum, the national chairman of the party, saying that.
Daily Sun, 11 new Supreme Court justices emerged this week. NJC meets to ratify candidate state judges on Wednesday, Thursday. But bottom page, COPA 28, Tinubu under fire for traveling with 1,114 contingents. Federal government's showmanship, waste in midst of poverty. Unfortunate will be PDP knocks president. We didn't fund all the delegates. That's coming from the presidency.
And from this Nigeria, $700 billion mineral industry bleeding. Nigerians ask government to sanitize sector, dislodge illegal miners, encourage banks to give loans to investors. And of course, if you look at the bottom of the page, palliative scandal rocks Kano. Governor Yusuf orders police to take over warehouse.
And we move here to Daily Times today. Kunle says, tension grips federal varsity Gusau, and you also have that risk management vital for Africa's full transition to clean energy, and that's coming from Tinubu.
And to the Nigerian Express, Obi bombs Tinubu over Nigeria's large delegation to COP28. That seems to be recurring. And then you have INEC directors tend to retire,
and then we have Nigerian News Direct, 2024 budget. Sarab condemns Wike's proposal to allocate 15 billion naira for VP's residents, 2.8 billion for publicity. Urges Senate to reject wasteful spending in supplementary budget. Calls on EFCC, ICPC to investigate alleged spending of previous allocated 7 billion for VP's residence construction.
To the leadership now, 400 billion naira state pension backlog threatens workers' retirement plan. Anambra, Benue, Delta, Ekiti, Osun default in pension remittances. And you have also there the daily asset, Tinubu under fire, over 1,411 contingents to COP28. Compete with China on production, not on contingent, Obi tells FG, and PDP describes APC as wasteful administration.
And then you have Standard Times, COP28, Obi presidency trade words over Nigeria's 1,411 delegation to Dubai. You would also see another story there, bottom page, just below that story, 87.4 trillion naira debt. Reject Wike's plan to spend 15 billion on VP's residence, Sarab tells Akpabio.
First news, COP28 coming up again. OB presidency trade words over 1,411 Nigerian delegates in Dubai. LP flag bearer accuses FG of sponsoring relations, friends, government officials, and hangers-on, and says Nigeria must stop waste by government and nation. And the presidency has responded that not all the delegates are sponsored.
All right, let's look at New Telegraph. 2,786 Owerri Correctional Centers escapees still at large. Investigation, and that's talking about the 2020-2021 jailbreak attack. But you also want to look at the Japa conversation there. U.S. Embassy under pressure as 150,000 Nigerians seek visas. Interesting.
These day newspapers, the headlines there, you have NPA, Nigeria will save $326.8 million from agreement with Intel, says private firm waived $193 million debt and discloses huge revenue loss to NPA's handling of pilotage. President Oyetola for putting Nigeria first, and Atiku insists divestment in company not reversed and declares new directive won't benefit him.
And the Daily Trust is looking at outrage over Nigeria's 1,411 delegates to COP28 summit. Well, Tinubu has turned climate change conference to Owambe. That's coming from Atiku. His waste of resources, says Obi, is outrageous, insensitive, says the CSOs. Presidency says government-funded contingents, less than 100. PDP demands reform of Vesta Codes, asks National Assembly to investigate delegation.
To the blueprint now, how wet lease aircraft put Nigerian aviation industry on edge. That's according to an investigation. Their aircraft are accidents waiting to happen. That's the rider. Serious one there.
Well, let's look at how serious this one too is from Nigerian Tribune. DSS, EFCC, ICPC vet Supreme Court nominees. NJC unveils 11-man list Thursday. New head of courts, judges to emerge. Delegates complaints against Osun CJ under review. You also see just above the masthead, FIRS waives penalties, interest on outstanding tax liabilities. Some people will be happy with that.
The Guardian has its headline saying over 60 refinery licenses inactive 18 years after as fuel import thrives. And that's a big one. On the side of that, you see Intel's waived $193 million debt to resolve pilotage crisis, NPA affirms.
And national economy is looking at the surge in building materials. Says 28 million housing deficit, 75%. Surge in building materials, cost compounds housing shortage. Above the masthead, you see there excessive debt repayment can hurt Nigeria's economy. Experts, 80% rise in food importation, alarming, and that's coming from the federal government, amongst other stories from AFCB. Chris, let's come to you first this morning. Good morning to you, and I'm sure that you are looking at the story that is really leading in most of the newspapers, talking about the travel, the entourage of Mr. President to COP28, 1,411 candidates from Nigeria. Well, even though the presidency says, well, they are only sponsoring about 100, others are being sponsored externally. But how do you look at this story?
Yes, Adora, thank you. Expectedly, that is our way of doing things. I remember vividly that this same government a few months ago said that when it was time for the UNGA conference summit in New York, in the United States, the president said that all those that had no direct involvement with UNGA will not be allowed to travel to the United States. So I thought that was going to be a benchmark for further foreign trips and that characterize our polity. But unfortunately, the government dropped the ball this time around with a delegation of 1,411 people. And just as you rightly said, the president has come to say that they only catered for about 100 out of the 1,411. But you ask yourself then, who gave them the go-ahead to embark on that trip, that jamboree, that even some celebrities and the rest were at the bet. That is how we roll. It's always the government officials always use opportunity. And the most interesting part of it is because it's Dubai. And you know what happens in Dubai. That is where they take their girlfriends to. That is where they take their wives to go and do shopping. It's Christmas. So an opportunity has arisen for them to be able to take them along, and that is what happened. And it's quite unfortunate that we get ourselves 1,001. What are they going there to do? It's a conference on climate change. Of what benefit is that conference to Nigeria that practically emptied the whole treasury and Nigeria to attend that conference? I saw the other they were competing with China. Of course, you can understand that of China competing with Brazil. But even the United States of America didn't take that much of delegation a United States that is rightly involved, fully involved on the issue of COP28. And you ask yourself, why this? But they always come out to explain and give reasons for that. But that is rather unfortunate for me. And that we're going through this route where the government is also asking Nigerians to tighten their belt. We are borrowing money to service our debt. We are borrowing money to service our budget. The little one that we have, continue to spend it anyhow. In this time and age that we're having serious financial crisis, especially foreign exchange, we are getting ourselves involved with this. But I leave to that, Adora. I really want to point out one of the stories. I don't know what it was, we didn't capture point. There's a story breaking a punch. The story of 8 youth coppers, a human angle story now. 8 youth coppers that were kidnapped 4 months ago from Akwa Ibom State youth coppers going to Sokoto State. We are kidnapped in Zamfara, and 4 months after, those children have not been rescued. And nothing seems to have been done by the government to be able to make sure that these children are rescued. And that puts a pay to some of us that have always said that probably the NYC is losing its relevance in the scheme of things. Because how can I have a child that I sent to university for 4 or 5 years, trained, only for him or her to try to go and serve the fatherland and to be kidnapped just like that, and they remain incommunicado. And our government is moving up as if notice that I think something should be done immediately to make sure that those children are rescued.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. Let's come to them now. What are your thoughts about, let's not talk about the story of the youth commoners just yet. I want us to go back to the story of the COP28 contingent. The president is under fire for such a large contingent. What are your thoughts?
Well, disappointing to think that a man who had prepared himself a lifelong ambition to become president of Nigeria comes into the saddle in a very controversial circumstance, an election that was very well, contested, and majority of the votes did not go his way if we think about how the Labour Party and the PDP amassed in total much more votes than him. So when he became president, for some of us, because if Tinubu succeeds, Nigeria succeeds. So we started, some of us became prayer warriors, praying and hoping, praying for good health for him, and hoping that he delivers. The president's speech was inspiring, his inaugural speech. We thought, okay, let's give him a chance. Unfortunately, this president, again, he promised us that he was going to build on where Buhari stopped.
Yeah, but you're not talking about COP28
we are there.
Just yet.
We are there. The president said he was going to build on where Buhari stopped. Buhari, too, was a man with a lot of wastefulness in government, especially the kind of medical tourism he condemned that he eventually embarked on. So Tinubu promised he was going to improve on what Buhari had done, continue from there. And so getting 1,411 Nigerians, delegates, to COP 2023. It's not just shocking, it's insensitive, it's irresponsible, and the defense they have put up, which is that they are sponsoring only about 100, and the rest of the contingents are either self-sponsored or they are getting sponsorship from wherever else. That is deceptive, that is deceitful, that is dishonest. A government that prides itself to be a government that is sensitive and responsible would, if they had nothing to hide, come out and disclose this list, not get eagle-eyed journalists to break this, discover this, and break the news. Think about it. As difficult as Nigeria has become, as difficult as it has become for citizens to even feed and survive, government under Tinubu is doing this. Let's compare to what President William Ruto of Kenya has done about the list of delegates for Kenya to COP28. The initial list that was submitted to the President William Ruto of Kenya was a list of 189 proposed delegates. Ruto sent it back to the administrators, cut down on this list. They sent back a list of 144. He said, no, cut it down to less than 60. We do not have need for everybody to be there. And Kenya has gone with 51 delegates. Let us assume, even though we know that it is a fallacy at the highest level, that others are sponsoring the remaining, only government is sponsoring only 100.
Are you very sure of that?
Yes, very sure. What have they disclosed? They keep still saying, look, a government that is honest, a government that is open, that is transparent, at this time will not give us about 100. There is no about 100. There are human beings, and there is not half human being. So if you are honest, if you are transparent, you will tell us we are sponsoring 100, not about 100. That's one. Two, we have a government in place that has told Nigerians to tighten up. You see, everything this government has decided to do since Tinubu took over is to continue on the wastefulness. You ask the citizens to tighten up their belts. You have released funds, 160 million naira each for SUV cars to lawmakers. What manner of leadership are we talking about? Look, nothing justifies it. Let's assume that some other people funded the trip of the other delegates besides the less than about 100 that they talk about. Are you saying that it is reasonable at all to have as many government officials leave their workstations to go on jamboree to Dubai? It's Christmas. Christmas has come early. We have visa ban in Dubai, and therefore, the president and his minders have used this opportunity to give their friends and cronies Christmas gift of a visa to Dubai to shop. Nothing can explain it other than the fact that this government is insensitive. This government is not committed. Whatever hope I had in the Tinubu administration has been properly dashed by this particular development. No country responsible. Look, the Malawian president 2 weeks ago did not just say he's banning travels to COP28. The Malawian president said he is not going to be going on trips anymore. And any government official, any minister who has a reason to go on trip, they must bring it to him and he would vet. He must be the approving authority, not his secretary of government himself, and decided that he was not going to be going on trips. But we have a Nigeria that has been driven blind by borrowing from Buhari to Tinubu APC government. And yet, we are living so ostentatiously at the expense of Nigerian masses. So much taxation. Wike is doing his own taxes in Abuja, and they are looking for how to continue to stifle and choke and suffocate the poor. Let the poor breathe. Let the masses of Nigeria breathe. And we have a Senate, a National Assembly that looks at this and thinks that it is well, all is okay.
Well, Sarap has actually called on the National Assembly to look at the planned expenditure of 15 billion naira on the VP's residence and the 2.8 billion for publicity by the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike. But talking about the youth and the young people, one of the stories that did come out was this story from the Nigerian pilot. Nigeria loses $10 billion yearly. This is because some youths do not have certification as skilled artisans in the country. Says here, Dangote imported about 11,000 welders from outside Nigeria to build refinery. Science Ministry is collaborating with the Ministry of Labour and Employment. And, of course, we come back to what you say you do not have faith in Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. are revolutionary instruments set to transform the country's economy. Chris, let me come back to you for this.